Let's see if we are live. Hey, hey, look at that. Look at that. Da-da-da. What is this now? Chat. Ooh, I gotta download the app. Oh no, I don't have to. I can open it in the browser. We're live on YouTube. Don't know if it's working, but all right. Let's get Sean in here. I'll make sure he's ready to go. For now, it's just me. For now, it's just one host, Kirby. And I have no idea chats are actually going to show up correctly or not. Post game, post game. Hope everybody can just bear with us through this. This is our first time trying this. So if you're here and you're not really, nothing's really going on, I'm sorry, but we're getting there. We're doing our best. Just be a few minutes of nothing going on. Oh, nice. Is it really? I'll just text you. No idea, Joe, but I'm effing thrilled that we are making that this is working. We're gonna get Sean on in a second here. We're gonna get rolling on talking about this first Minnesota Vikings game of the year against the Atlanta Falcons. We got a lot of good. We got some bad that I think we both Sean and I agreed we want to touch on quick. But yeah, we'll get Sean in here in a sec. Actually, let me go grab a drink. Ooh, spicy. I'm really good at vamping for time. Except I'm not at all. Because I have no idea if it's interesting. All right, we're going to add Sean into this call. Really quiet. Hey, Sean.
Hey, what's happening?
Not much. I can't tell if this is really quiet on my end or what.
Sound good on my end.
Audio video settings. Try now.
Testing. Can you hear me all right?
Ooh, that's a buzz. That's weird. Oh, I think I might know what it is. Let's kill that. Turn that on. Try again. Didn't have my didn't have my cable plugged in my headphones all the way. That's why it was all crackly. Yeah, but otherwise sounds good. All right, we're actually already live. Joe and I figured it out in like the last half hour before the end of the game, so we should be live on YouTube and Periscope. I don't know how to look at Periscope, so I have no idea if anybody is chatting there. Nobody's chatting on YouTube, but that's okay because this is more for us to have the video all ready to go and just export from there. So let me pull up our show notes because we are going to talk about some Vikings football, some excellent Vikings football. Myself bigger. All right. As I stated before, we are about the labor. We are one of the premier Minnesota Vikings podcasts, I would say, or at least we try to be. Um, Talking about today's game, excellent showing, I thought. Just to start out, let's just go through the pretty much the whole game. My show notes here start with we started really strong and really fired up. I thought that was amazing. Starting with a block punt, touchdown to Thielen, INT by Harris, followed by a Dalvin Cook touchdown. Then we traded punts and a forced fumble by Trey Waynes, picked up by Anthony Harris, and followed by a Kirk Cousins rushing kind of Statue of Liberty, reach over the top score. What did you think of that start, and how excited were you? Yeah, I think this was exactly the way that we need to start, especially after last season disappointing all around. I mean, last year we started out with a good game as well, but it didn't seem to be as dominant, and it certainly wasn't against as good of a team. I know the 49ers have talent. I know they're up and coming with Jimmy Garoppolo, but the Falcons are a very good team despite like how they played today. I think they're right up there in the top, top 7, 8 teams in the NFC for sure. Yeah, and I think that's one of the biggest things that people aren't going to identify with Atlanta's defense is that they're very good. They have a lot of solid playmakers. Devondre Campbell is one guy that I thought was, and Deion Jones is another linebacker who's very good. Deion Jones was flying around making some plays today. Their defensive line is not incredible by any means, but I think where they're really they didn't seem to get beat too much. Obviously, we picked them apart a little bit, but their secondary is a lot better than I think people are going to give them credit for, especially with Keanu Allen, or Keanu Neal returning from injury and Ricardo Allen coming back. I think the Falcons are a little underrated, which is funny because we kind of showed them that like the team that they could be. Like essentially, we showed them their floor today. But I think we also showed how good of a team the Vikings can be, and leaning into that, especially with a run first offense, we saw it all day long. I think it was like 75% of plays plus were run plays, which is so different than how last year started with Flip, where we were passing 50 times a game. But I think we saw the run. We saw Dalvin Cook go over 100 yards, couple of touchdowns. We saw Alexander Madison have some good solid gains. I don't know. I guess I just want to get your thoughts on what the run game looked like, especially not just the backs, but how the blocking looked in front of them.
I think, and say what you will about Elfline, he may have had some misplays. It seems like he will, kind of going forward, he'll have a hiccup here and there. But I loved what I saw. A lot of grit, guys finishing plays. That's not something that we've seen from a Minnesota offensive line in a long time. So that was really refreshing to see. And with a running back like Dalvin Cook behind him and Madison, who is very underrated, I think, coming out of college. I think you got the recipe for what could be a very successful unit and rushing attack this season.
Yeah, I think They look great. I think the zone run scheme worked exactly how it was supposed to. We had some issues getting a push up the middle a lot of the time, but especially on those off tackle right towards right off of Klein's butt, and especially to that side where it was very very successful. The only one that I was really kind of concerned about was Pat Elfline got beat pretty bad on a few. Garrett Bradbury held his own against that very good D tackle. I don't remember his name right offhand.
Jarrett?
Yeah, Garrett. There you go.
Yeah, Grady Jarrett.
Yeah, he looked good, solid, but not anything stellar. Got beat on a few, but Elfline is kind of concerning to me, just because that's the guy we're relying on to hold down that left side. And there's going to be times where we can't run to the right. We got to try to go to that left side, and I just didn't see enough from him. We had a few issues with pass protection, I thought, on the Cousins fumble that wasn't a fumble that was overturned. And then on the Cousins fumble that was a fumble that Garrett Bradbury very smartly fell on.
What an athlete, huh?
What an athlete! But that's like the thing is, it doesn't look like an athletic play, but you see guys blow that play all the time just because they don't know what's going on. But I thought the pass blocking looked good, but it needs to improve, especially coming up against the Packers. As much as I joked about the Packers, did the Packers play well or did the Bears play bad? I think their defensive line is especially good, and I think we're going to have a real test on our hands next week.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I mean, the pass rushers that Green Bay got this offseason are really good. Zadarius Smith and Preston Smith, and the tackles especially. I think Reef and O'Neal will have their hands full. And I didn't hear a lot of Brian O'Neal's name mentioned today, which I didn't look at him specifically much, but I can only assume that's a good thing. So that's a good sign. I felt like Reef had a good day. So I feel like those two at least have some momentum heading into week 2 at Green Bay. But yeah, like you said, the interior line could be a little bit more of a question mark. So yeah, that'll be interesting. I'm not concerned about Elfline quite yet, but it is something to watch going forward. I just feel like he's a step up from Tom Compton almost any day. But something to look at for sure going forward.
Yeah, we got in the chat. We asked our thoughts on Nick Foles' injury. I don't know if you saw, but Nick Foles broke his clavicle.
I did see that.
I think he's probably done for the season. Clavicles are hard to come back from. Maybe he comes back in the last weeks of the season, but I highly doubt he plays, as I do not think Jacksonville will be in playoff contention.
Who's their backup now?
It's a great question. I have no idea. I could give it a Google.
There's always Kyle Sloter.
There's not Kyle Sloter. Kyle Sloter signed with someone, didn't he?
I think isn't he on AZ's practice squad?
Oh, is he a practice squad?
I think. I'm not positive.
I thought someone picked him up as an actual backup. Chase Litton? Does that sound right? Or is it Minshew, Gardner Minshew? Either way,
yeah, it's Minshew. Minshew, yep.
Either way, probably not great for the Jags. They're going to trade for Blake Bortles, is what Tang Yang says. I hope they do. It'd be the best timeline. But I really kind of feel bad for Nick Foles, as much as Vikings fans might not like him. I think he's one of the good ones. Definitely plays with a lot of heart. Tough to see, but hopefully he'll come back stronger than ever, and hopefully Jacksonville isn't out that money because they just paid him a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I never want to see any players get hurt. And Nick Foles, like you said, I think he's a good guy. In fact, I'm sure the Vikings probably considered him at some point after the NFC Championship loss. Anyway, yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see what John DeFilippo does there, and I don't know. I'm very glad that the Vikings are in the hands of Stefanski and Kubiak now rather than JDF. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, it's definitely much better. But going back to the Vikings game, and looking at the defense came out firing, just absolutely ready to go. Just highlighting the man of the hour, the player of the day in my mind, Anthony Harris with the 2 INTs, one of them in the end zone to end a red zone drive by the Falcons. And then the other the other recovered turnover forced by Trey Waynes, the fumble. Anthony Harris essentially put at least 14 points on the board for the Vikings today with turnovers, and he kept 7 off in the end zone at least. So it's what you want to see from a guy. But Nick Olson had a good point that now you kind of wish that the Vikings had been able to lock him up, because with this kind of performance, and if he keeps this momentum, he's going to get paid to play safety somewhere else. He's going to get paid a lot.
Yeah, man, what a day for him. I mean, first of all, those catches, both of them were like insanely athletic plays, and like his hands for a D-back are phenomenal. He looked like a wide receiver picking off that ball in the end zone. That was pretty cool to see. As far as extending him, I'm cool with them waiting until after this year. I think he obviously played well last year and made some great plays when he was in. But I'd like to see one more year of it. He's obviously off to a great start, but let's see one more year of it before we pay him. We don't need to pay everybody early, but I do understand where he's coming from there.
Yeah, I think there's the interesting, like, we've hit on so many recently, but like you can get hurt so bad by signing guys early, but like there's been so many that we've hit on that like people want to just lock everybody up right away. And I think Anthony Harris has the potential to be a hit, especially as like an undrafted college free agent. Like, we obviously have gotten our value out of him already. Um, so if we don't re-sign him, it wouldn't be like a big loss necessarily, but definitely would be great to lock him up for a team friendly deal. Um, going Staying in the secondary, Mackenzie Alexander, like we said, he had a broken elbow, I believe, is what's dislocated elbow, so probably be out for a few weeks. At the very least, that kind of sucks. But we saw Jaron Kearse did okay in coverage, got beat a couple times. I think Kearse's biggest problem, as far as I can tell, is overplaying people. He has a tendency to get ran off really easily. And I think it just is a product of he's fired up and he's ready to go every play, and sometimes that causes him to get himself in the wrong position.
Yeah, I didn't. I'll be honest. I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to Curse today, but I'm if there's one player on the defense I'm not concerned about, it's probably him, just because he is so amped up, as you said, all the time. That it's probably just this experience will help. Where he'll bring it down a notch, maybe where he's not overdoing it, like you said. So it'll be cool. It'll be cool to watch him going forward. I think he'll get a lot of snaps, and his role will keep growing with the defense. And I'm actually interested to see. I mean, it's down the road. They're both on the team, but if the team can't, come to an agreement with Harris, if they would consider Curse going forward. But I think it's nice having both those guys, and I hope Mackenzie Alexander's not out long, because we could definitely use him with how thin the cornerback depth is.
Yeah, definitely with Hill, being suspended. Rhodes was in and out of the game today. Obviously, when he was in, he looked amazing. He shut down when he was on Julio Jones. He shut him down. Although Eric Kendricks shut down Julio Jones a few times, which was awesome to see. I think that's a matchup that Atlanta likes to run, trying to get Julio against those linebackers. But it's good to see that we have the athletic linebackers to not only stick with him, but make plays on the ball at the catch point, because there was a couple that's a ball that like Julio catches like 6 or 7 times out of 10 against a linebacker, and Eric Kendricks was right there to knock it away a few times. Staying in that pass game, Harrison Smith looked pretty good again today. He didn't play the ball much, but he played his men when he needed to, and kept them from scoring. That one where he hit Gage, I think it was, out of bounds. I mean, he wasn't going to come down in bounds anyways, but that's a play where I think you can be called for a penalty pretty easily. and Smith was smart enough to stay up, not go for the super big hit, just kind of carry him out of bounds and drop him. Um, very very smart plays from Harrison Smith. But that's to kind of be expected. The only really kind of bad thing was two sort of garbage time touchdowns from Matt Ryan. First one on just a beautiful throw from Ryan to Ridley. Ridley, am I saying that right? I don't know.
Yeah, that beautiful toss right over Wayne's. That was a heck of a play.
Yeah, just dropped it in there. That one's a tough one to defend unless you're right in the guy's hip pocket and like your arms around him. You essentially have to get called for pass interference to stop that play.
Oh, especially
Um,
Trey Wayne.
yeah, especially Trey Waynes. But and then that garbage time touchdown from Julio Jones, where the new guy we just brought in from Kansas City was on him. Not worried about
Yeah,
it. It's it's tough for anybody to match up with Julio in the red zone, and then to put a guy who just got in on the team and isn't really the starter. He's a depth player. Um, but
yeah.
yeah,
Mark Fields, good to have him get a little experience for what it's worth.
yeah. And one thing we'll hope to see next week, hopefully, if not, the week after, is Mike Hughes back in the game and playing some of those snaps. That would really help, especially with Rhodes kind of walking off the field every 2 or 3 plays to get a breather. Tang Yang, yes, we are thinned at cornerback early in the season. Yeah, Hughes not return. Um, Trying to interact with chat because we're actually live today.
Oh
Michael
yeah, that's
Cambry,
right.
how did Bradbury play today? I thought Bradbury did well. We kind of talked about it already, but Bradbury covered his spots and held his own. Got beat a few plays, but Jarrett is a very good defensive tackle, so like hard to contain him all game. But again, staying on the defensive side of the ball, but moving up, linebackers look great. Anthony Barr looked fired up. Anthony Barr looked like the captain of that defense today, more than he looked like the captain of that defense all last season.
Yeah, and that's a great point. I was just thinking about that during the game. Honestly, I'm like, what if Everson were to leave at some point? It's like, who's that next guy? And it seems to be at this point. I mean, to be Anthony Barr, especially after what happened this offseason, him kind of sprinting the Jets and coming back. That was, I think I saw Wabi pregame talking about that. That was definitely a huge pivotal moment in the Vikings offseason. And to have that core together still is it's awesome to see. And I think those guys are going to play hard for each other for the rest of the season, as long as they're together.
Yeah, definitely. Like there's that brotherhood there that's definitely looking incredible. And that one where both Griffin and I think Hunter got credit for a half sack. It was all three. It was Griffin, Hunter, and Mataafa all ran back and did the jump kick all in unison.
Yeah, I did see that.
That was great to see. That's one of the big things that we didn't see last season. A lot of we saw a little bit of it, but we didn't see a lot of celebrating, a lot of camaraderie between the team on either side of the ball. We saw the kind of Kirk Cousins weird dead arm dance, but like other than that, we didn't see much of that getting together and being joyful. So it was just an amazing start to the season. Amazing the white dad
Whatever that
dance.
was. Yeah,
Um,
that was funny.
but the one thing that I'll say on defense that we've got to clean up is all the penalties. I don't think Trey Waynes' personal pass interference was actual pass interference. I think it was borderline. Not surprised they didn't pick up the flag though. I think that's one thing we're going to learn this year is they're not going to pick up pass interference flags when you challenge them unless it's very very obvious that there was no pass interference or they're not going to like assess a pass interference unless it's very obvious that there was a pass interference. Basically, what happened in the NFC Championship game is going to happen for them to flip their decision on a pass interference call this year.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I guess I don't have a whole lot of insight here. It's as long as it doesn't end up screwing the Vikings somehow, which is always a concern if you're a Vikings fan, sadly to say. But it was cool to see Zimmer use it and kind of defend his guys a little bit because that was a pretty ticky-tacky call on Wayne's, I think, when he did use it. So, but he ended up getting called for something earlier that route.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
we'll
they
see what
would have.
happens there.
Yeah, they would have had a penalty anyways, and it got cleaned up by Harris, so it didn't matter. Like Harris took the points off the board by intercepting it in the end zone. Um, so like it didn't end up mattering, but definitely like something to watch is Waynes and Rhodes getting more of those pass interference calls. The other thing is offsides. I think we gave them 3 first downs on third down because of offsides penalties that really just shouldn't happen. Like there's the offensive line is allowed to move, and I get that. That's hard to watch in front of you, but you really just got to stay back and watch the ball, especially in those situations where you're giving them a free another set of downs.
Yeah, that was. I mean, for veteran defense, that's kind of inexcusable, and I think it just happened to, happen to be in those situations where it would give them a first down. So that was just unfortunate. But for that to be the only issue, I think is probably a good thing. Obviously, we want that to get fixed going forward, but I think it will. Um, and even if we see a couple more throughout the season, it probably won't give the other team first downs. But we might see a little bit of that with some younger guys, Mata Afa. It seems to be a pretty routine aspect of Griffin's game, which is sad to say, but he's looking more and more like his old self. So I don't think I'm concerned really moving forward with the outsides.
Yeah, Griffin looked amazing today, especially with those spin moves hitting the left tackle. I thought it was kind
Yeah,
of
Matthews.
yeah, it was kind of tough on the other side too. Caleb McGarry's very first official NFL action, he has to go against Daniil Hunter and try to contain him with another rookie next to with another rookie next to him. Like it's so difficult to handle that. I thought he did actually an okay job. I think Hunter got to Ryan a few times, but he only got the 1 sack, well, the 1.5 sacks. So he actually looked pretty good against a very Daniil Hunter is one of the top 5 pass rushers in the NFL. But going back to those penalties, one of the things that I think is going to be interesting to watch out for is other teams if we continue to play as well as we did, other teams getting chippy. Atlanta definitely did it today, where there was a lot of extracurriculars right after the play where they get a shot in. Um, but I think that's a good thing. You want to see teams doing that to you. Like you don't want to see anybody get hurt, obviously, but when they're so frustrated that they're giving you a little extra after the play to try to turn the tide and give themselves some momentum or whatever, that's a great thing that you want to see. You don't want to see it, but at the same time, you want to see it. The only thing that you don't want to see is like Stephen Weatherly retaliating and hitting Alex Mack back in the face. I'm surprised that both of them didn't get ejected on that play, actually, because Mack gave a shot right into the face mask after the play, and Weatherly retaliated with a shot back.
Yeah, I didn't catch that, to be honest with you. I must have missed it, but was it like a punch almost?
It was just kind of open hand slap to the face mask, and
Okay.
then he did it back. So they gave Weatherly a legal hands to the face, which happened during the play, and then Mack
Oh,
gave
yeah, I
him a
did see
shot
that.
right after the play, and Weatherly gave it back to him. Again, it's a little surprising that they didn't throw them out, but I think they probably talked to them, and that's why I think that's part of it is how you react to the officials and how you talk to them after the play. As long as you're not a jerk about it, they'll give you some leeway, and they understand that you're competing out there. You're playing to win. Um,
Yeah, and I think the Vikings just having that little veteran savviness on defense is probably a good thing. You're going to know how to talk to the ref a little bit more, and hopefully a guy like Stephen Weatherly is smart enough to know how to get the upper hand with the refs. We'll put it that way. But I love seeing the chippiness. That's what football is all about, man. I absolutely love it. And it is kind of a dirty way to get the momentum on your side. But, when you're playing the Dirty Birds, you got to kind of expect it. But, yeah, I love football. I hope we see more of that, honestly, the rest of the year. And like you said, as long as nobody gets hurt.
yeah, going back over to the other side of the ball, somebody mentioned that Glad the Vikes gave away that kicker. He blew the game for the Jets today. I don't know what that's about. If Vedvik just blew a game for the Jets or whatever. Um, if you know something about that, please chat in it. But I thought Dan Bailey looked extremely confident on his extra points today. All of them nailed right down the middle. Just kind of went about his business. Not that he didn't look like that before, but it seemed like last season every time he was coming up, it was kind of a what's going to happen. Are we going to see a good kick? Even on extra points, it was questionable. Even though he was at a super high rate, it seemed like extra points were still kind of shaky for the whole team. Like they all seemed kind of on edge. But today it was all just business as usual. Snap, spot, kick, all perfect. So I think that was great to see. It sucks that Vedvik had to die for Dan Bailey to get his confidence back, but um, I thought it was great to see.
Yeah, I mean, all it took was a fifth round pick, right?
Yeah, all it took
um,
was Stephon Diggs, the next Stephon Diggs.
yeah, I mean, I heard something about Vedvik possibly having a game-winning attempt. I don't know. I haven't seen anything since then. So that would be kind of funny though if he did blow a kick.
It
But
looks
yeah, it was.
yeah,
You getting some info?
it looks like Buffalo won by 1 point. So
Oh
missed an
my.
extra point and a field goal, and they lost by one. Oof.
Well,
Oof.
he's got
Okay.
a little.
He's got the Blair Walsh syndrome.
Yeah, he must have picked it up in his time in Minnesota. But going back to Dan Bailey, he looks to have his confidence back. He looked close last year, but you just something was a little off. So let's hope whatever happened when Vedvik was here helped Dan Bailey, and he'll be good for from now on going forward here. Hopefully it lasts the rest of the season.
Yeah, that would be amazing to see just because every single point matters. Maybe not today, but every single point normally matters. Um,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Staying on special teams, punt coverage I thought was mediocre to bad. Um, there was a play where Chris Boyd had him lined up in his sights and just went too fast and took him out before he caught the ball because he didn't call for a fair catch, but Chris Boyd's got to know to let him catch the ball before he hits him. On another one, I think it was Cantrell Brothers, completely ran past the returner, had a perfect shot at him, just completely ran past him. It didn't look like Colquitt was out kicking the coverage. It looked like our guys were getting there in time, but maybe like a hair. They were getting there a hair late, and it gave Werner a chance to make a move. But that's another thing that can be ironed out in practice this week, hopefully. On the flip side of that, I love Chad Beebe fair catching every single punt.
Yeah, I mean, he looked so BB that is looked so natural in training camp catching punts. It's like he's made to be a punt returner. So I'm honestly surprised the Vikings haven't named him the punt returner full time going forward. But it's nice to have options there, I guess. Malou said, he has situational guys, but I do want to touch on Britton Cole quick because I think he's the best punter the Vikings have had since. I mean, I like Chris Cluey, but I'm gonna go all the way back to Mitch Berger. I think he's the best punter the Vikings have had since Mitch Berger, and I couldn't be more excited to have Britton Colquitt.
One game, and you're putting him up there with the Vikings punter royalty.
Oh, easily. I mean, I lived through the Jeff Locke period, which was just brutal. Oh my god. Uh,
Jeff Locke
who
had the
else have we
most
had?
punts inside the 20. Come on. Granted, he was punting. He was punting from the 40 every time, but
No argument is going to help how I feel about Jeff Locke. Unfortunately, I just felt like he was terrible. Quigley was also he set that record, I think, of touchbacks or punts down within the 20.
mm-hmm.
But the whole mess is just it's nice to settle on Colquitt, who's a veteran. He can hold well, he can punt well, and I think the rest of the season or the next few weeks especially is just going to be the special teams working with him to get their timing right, so they aren't over pursuing or just running by guys. They're breaking down a little bit better. So hopefully that will improve, like you said, going forward. But I'm very excited about Colquitt.
Yeah, I
And
think
yes, punter royalty for sure.
punter royalty. That's what matters. It really does matter. I don't think we joke about it a lot about special teams and long snappers and holders and everything, but it really does matter. It's great when you don't notice them, and I don't think we noticed them much today. Other than, like I said, Dan Bailey looked good on extra points. Somebody asked, is Chad Beebe our wide receiver 3? Yes, he is for now. I think Olabisi Johnson got in there towards the end of the game, but Chad Beebe caught that one screen pass for a first down. Definitely he's the wide receiver 3, but I don't think he's the third receiving option. I think he's probably, when Dalvin Cook is in the game, he's probably the 5th receiving option behind Diggs, Thielen, Rudolph, and Cook. I really think he is.
That's a good way to look at it. I think I feel the same now that you mentioned that. And I mean, Irv Smith is up there too, but I think Cook is ahead of him.
Yeah, Irv
Sure.
Smith didn't catch any passes today, but I thought he did a decent job. Threw some good blocks. I think
Very
he threw
good.
a really good block on one of Cook's touchdowns. If I'm remembering that play correctly. Did Josh
Yeah,
Doxson play today? I don't think Doxson saw the
he
field at
was
all.
inactive, one of the inactives today,
Was he? Okay.
which is to be
Um,
expected. You know.
yeah, he doesn't know the playbook. Not there yet, but I think by next week he might see some playing time depending on the situations. I kind of hope he did. Um, Holton Hill is serving his 6-game suspension, so they are really screwed at cornerbacks. Yes and no. It all depends on Trey Waynes, Xavier Rhodes, and Mac Alexander, not for the next couple weeks, but Mike Hughes. Because I think if those 3 play most of the time, we're going to do okay. If we have to rely on Chris Boyd, the new guy from Kansas City, and God, I hope not Marcus Epps, we're going to have some issues.
Yeah, it's a little nerve wracking, but somebody told me this a few weeks ago, and I wish I remember who it was so I could give him credit. Maybe it was you, but they said that after this first game of playing Atlanta, the next few teams on the schedule, we got Green Bay coming up. I'd have to look at the schedule after that.
Green Bay, New York, and Chicago is the first month. I know that.
So if you look at those teams, receiver, tight end wise, mostly receiver wise, they're not that deep. Green Bay maybe a little, but the other teams, you don't really have to worry so much about your depth in the defensive backfield. So that eases a lot of pressure again on Mike Hughes coming back. Hill's got that 8-game suspension, obviously, but hopefully that time will be enough time for Mackenzie Alexander to heal up as well. We'll see.
Yeah, I think we just played the deepest team that we will for the first four weeks, like at receiver and tight end. Because obviously the Packers have Adams and they've got a couple other like decent receivers, but most of all the Packers have Aaron Rodgers. Like that's their big thing. Like he can play with anybody and make them look good. So it's not necessarily about the receivers for Green Bay. It's about getting to Aaron Rodgers and keeping him in the pocket and putting pressure on him. So we'll see how we do that next week. If we can do that, we can win in Lambeau, I think, pretty easily. I'm not afraid of the Packers' defense that much, especially after our line held their own today. I think they'll have a little bit more trouble, but hopefully we see a little bit more of the play action off of the run. We didn't do it much in the second half today. We did a little bit, but we didn't need to because we were doing very well on the ground. Trubisky drafted before Mahomes. Chicago fans won't let that down. Yeah, that's kind of the joke of the week. Is Mitchell Trubisky was drafted before Pat Mahomes.
Ugh. Yeah, he does look like the second coming of Christian Ponder. Just the throws to the left thing it's so funny, but it's so true. The guy he can't do it. It's kind of entertaining because he's on somebody else's team.
Yeah, not only someone else's team, Chicago, which is
Yeah, in our
great.
division.
Great to see.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
he,
Chicago
he's
team lives and dies by the turnovers on defense. So
very true, and I have a hard time seeing them repeating what they did last year as far as the amount of turnovers they got. But they are a very good defense, and Trubisky, for how Ponderesque he is, he's very good with his feet, and he can make some good plays. So I shouldn't concretely put him in that category yet. I don't think.
yeah, I think he's a heck of an athlete, and if he can figure out how to throw the ball, he might do okay. But I think just indicative of like where he is as a passer was last year. As dumb as it sounds, the skills competition where it was him and Thielen, and or Russell Wilson and Adam Thielen, and then him and Mike Evans from Tampa Bay, and Um, Wilson dropped every single ball to Thielen like perfectly, and Mitchell Trubisky couldn't hit Mike Evans to save his life.
Just a giant of a man.
Yeah, like Mike Evans is not a hard target to hit, and especially in like a no pressure situation, and Trubisky just couldn't make it happen.
I'm excited. It's only been 1 week, but I'm excited about the Vikings prospects moving forward. I don't think the division is going to be quite as strong as people realize, but it's early, so we'll see.
Yeah, I think just looking at the scoreboard right now, someone mentioned Indianapolis suffering from Luck's retirement. Looks like they're losing 6-17 to the Chargers. Chargers are a very good team. I wouldn't necessarily write the Colts off just because they're losing to the Chargers. They've got a very good defense. But the score to watch, I think, for Vikings fans right now is Detroit is up 17-0 in Arizona. Arizona is not a great team, but like Detroit putting up 17 points and a half is a little bit surprising because even though they have Matt Stafford, I don't think their offense is the strength of that team at all.
No, I had that feeling too that Detroit is going to be the one team that's better than people realize this year. I still don't know if they're a big threat to win NFC North, but that's what NFL is all about, the disparity, and they have a pretty solid defense, like you said. So it's definitely surprising to see him put up 17 points and a half for sure, but it's against a pretty bad team. So we'll chalk that one up to that for now.
Yeah, my Kyler Murray as a bust pick is looking very good at the moment. It seems.
Yeah, I thought for sure that you're going to be wrong about that one, but it's looking pretty. You're looking pretty smart on that.
It's only been 1 week, but I'm hoping that I'm right on that one. Do I think Aaron Rodgers is declining? I'll let Sean field that one first. Do you think Aaron Rodgers is declining?
Yes, yes, I do. Um, he's still phenomenal, but I think he's 34 years old. He's had a knee injury, a nagging knee injury that's kind of slowed him down almost all of last year. Um, the offense isn't as good as it was, which isn't. It's kind of an indictment to him. But he's declining. He's not the player he once was. He's not quite as nimble. He's still got an incredible arm, but that doesn't mean that he can't make the playoffs. Still, he could easily leave Green Bay to a playoff run or deeper just because he's Aaron Rodgers. But I feel like he's physically and mentally on the decline for sure. What do you think?
I think he is. I think a lot of people are going to compare him to Drew Brees and Tom Brady. But I think what the difference is Tom Brady and Drew Brees are built. They have a system built around them that works. Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay has been the system for his entire tenure as the starting quarterback. Like that's the biggest difference. I think he's been expected to pull the pack into the playoffs every single season, and I think it's starting to get to him because you look at some of these incredible wins from Green Bay in the past years. Monday night comebacks, just crazy things. The Hail Mary in Detroit, yeah, they're amazing. They're amazing victories, but at some point you have to realize that he's giving his all every single, like, he's playing hard 4 quarters, 16 games a year just to get them into playoffs. When you think about it, like, look at Drew Brees and look at Tom Brady. A lot of the time they can take halfway through the third quarter, fourth quarter off during the regular season because they don't have to worry about it. Like, their teams are built that way, their offenses are built that way, and it's why Belichick and, as much as I hate him, Sean Payton are such geniuses because they're able to build a system. They're able to play to the point where they control the game, and that's why they've gotten the longevity out of those players. A little bit, well, props to Mike Zimmer. He does a similar, or he tries to do a similar thing, just in reverse, where he wants to control the game and he wants to win, and he doesn't want his quarterbacks to do much. But slightly different because he does it from the defensive side of the ball. So we don't usually jump out to huge leads against especially good teams, but we're just in control the whole time. And the hope is that we never have to rely on a quarterback to come back and win like a game in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, good points too about Rodgers, and I think he relies on his legs too a little bit more than Brady and Breeze too, and that's a big reason why I see him declining just with the injury aspect. But yeah, the Vikings. I mean, we saw him bringing Cousins because Keenum couldn't bring him back in the NFC Championship in 2017. Cousins may or may not be able to do that. He hasn't shown the ability yet, in my opinion. He's actually struggled hugely in big time games. So I'm looking forward to him performing well in those big time games this year, and hopefully like what we saw today, the run game will take a lot of pressure off of him. And I think the offense that the Vikings have now is just a very good fit for him, just to be able to accomplish that, to be able to perform well under the big lights and feel comfortable in doing so. So that'll be a big step for him if he's able to do that this year. Look out.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of how this team is supposed to be built, right? Is like we don't have to rely on the quarterback to win big games for us, and I think that's how you build confidence in a young quarterback. Unless you are Aaron Rodgers, unless you are Drew Brees, who are phenomenal, just some of the greatest football players to ever play the game. Young Peyton Manning comes to mind, where they just can take over a fourth quarter and just win the ball game. I think Cousins has the possibility to do that, but part of his problem is he's been relied upon to do that his whole career in Washington. He was expected to come back. Like, as soon as he became the starter, he was expected to come back. He was expected to just win games. Hopefully we see a little bit of a renaissance. Hopefully we see a little bit of a renaissance with him just being able to sit back and manage the game. Maybe once in a while leading a fourth quarter drive, because I think he's shown that he can do it. But when he's expected to be the only one winning the game, that doesn't work. We saw it against Chicago at the end of last year. That's the one that sticks out in my mind, where nobody played well. Nobody played well, and it was just kind of everybody looked at him and said, "Win the game," but nobody else was playing well. So
sure.
Very few quarterbacks can just throw the team on their back.
Yeah, unless you're like an old school Michael Vick, where you can just the offensive line just lets everybody go and you just run around everybody and still get a touchdown. But yeah, it's definitely a team game, and I think the Vikings definitely assembled the team to do it. I think from a roster construction standpoint, they've got everything they really need for a deep playoff run this year, and I'm pretty excited about the season. We'll obviously see how injuries go. Hopefully, Matt can return sooner than later. But yeah, I'm excited to see how the team as a whole does, rather than just relying on one person. So we'll see. We'll see next week's, I think, a pretty big test.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the. I think that's going to set the tone for the first 8 games of the season, because last year we had the same thing. We came in, we rolled a little bit against San Francisco, not as well as we did today, but we still did really well. And then we went to Green Bay and we had chances to win the game, and due to reasons we didn't. Um, somebody named Daniel Carlson, among other things. It's not all on him, but like when you get 3 opportunities to win the game and you can't, that's tough. Yeah, we're almost at an hour here, so I'm gonna hit these 3 last messages that we've got from viewers. The Browns, who we thought they were, Cleveland should put the city on suicide watch if they go 0-2 next week. I don't think it's that bad. I think Cleveland is used to losing enough that they're not. They're, like the real fans in Cleveland aren't ready to end it just because they're going to go 0-2. Although they did lose by 30 to Tennessee today. I think Tennessee's a better team than people give them credit for. Honestly, everybody wants Mariota out, but I think Mariota is the guy to go for right now in Tennessee, and I think they're a lot better than people give them credit for, because they were a playoff team not that long ago. They didn't make it last year. They missed out in the last week of the season, but they were a playoff team just a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But if Cleveland goes 0-2, I don't think they're ready to give up on it yet.
No, you can't be, especially in Cleveland, like you said. They could go like 0-6 and still like probably be able to make the playoffs. But fantasy wise, Baker Mayfield, come on, man, let's keep it going.
Got to pick it up. Do you have Mayfield in leagues?
I took him and Delvin Cook in a lot of my leagues, and the Cook pick's looking pretty good so far.
The Cook pick is looking excellent. The chef is cooking. Case Keenum failed to bring another game back against the Eagles. This is kind of an interesting one because Washington started out hot. They went up 20-0 on them, and then the Eagles just stormed back and took it. But I think that's kind of the way Washington's team is. They don't look terrible right now. Like, they didn't look terrible right now. Losing by 5 points to the Eagles is nothing to scoff at, but like getting up by 20 on the Eagles and then letting them come back and win is.
They needed.
Yeah.
Oh, they needed to play Adrian Peterson and just run out the clock the rest of the game after you're up 20.
This is what's interesting to me. Adrian Peterson was, I believe, 8th in the league last year in total rushing, and they turn around and not to say that it's wrong, because you don't want to run with a 34-year-old running back as your main option necessarily, and they just drafted a very good rookie, I believe. But to leave him inactive on the first week of the season is ridiculous to me. He gave you over 1,000 yards. He looked very good. He didn't look like the Adrian Peterson of old, but he looked like he still had some gas left in the tank. So I don't know why that move was made. Similar to, I don't know why LaShawn McCoy was cut in Buffalo. I haven't read much about it, but and Frank Gore apparently was surprised that McCoy was cut. Yeah, it's very confusing. It's a very confusing move to me to just not use Adrian Peterson in that situation when he gave you over 1,000 yards last year.
Yeah, I don't understand that either. That's why I'm glad I'm not a Washington fan. But I feel like I'm the only Vikings fan who thinks that Peterson is one of the more underrated backs ever. And people laugh at that, and I don't understand it, quite honestly. And you get folks like Eric Eager on PFF who try to minimalize what he's done because he wasn't a good pass blocker or pass catcher. He was one of the best downhill runners ever. I don't know how you can't see that. It's frustrating because I do feel like he kind of got screwed out of when he got suspended for 15 games. I can't remember the year. If it weren't for that year and he had another successful 1,000-yard season, he could be looking at top 5 NFL rushing yards of all time. And I've never understood the hate for Peterson. You can say what you want about his off-field stuff, That part I get. Um, but for him as a football player, he was was and still is, I think, underrated.
Yeah, I think I've saw we had a discussion on the boards, on the message boards. Plug Purple PTSD message boards. Please get on there, sign up for an account, talk to us all day. I'm here pretty much all the time. But we had a discussion of who the top 5 running backs in Vikings history were, and somebody listed Robert Smith as the number 1 running back, and they listed the reason as he didn't fumble as much as Peterson, which I understand.
Humble.
That the fumbles were an issue for quite a while, but outside of the NFC Championship game, I don't remember it costing us that much in big games. And Peterson had like 5,000 yards more rushing as a Viking and a ton more touchdowns. So I don't think, as a player, you cannot doubt that Peterson was the best runner in Vikings history. Um, and like you said, as a person, you can have your opinions on Peterson. I have my own opinion on Peterson. Um, that you might be able to see with one of the things we talk about next. But like as a football player, I think he was definitely underrated. He literally carried the Vikings for close to a decade into the playoffs. A decent amount of times when you had Christian Ponder and a patchwork O line and a terrible defensive secondary most of the time outside of Antoine Winfield. Um, but yeah, I think Peterson is underrated all time, which is a little unfortunate, at least from the player aspect, because he should be up in there in the conversation with Walter Payton, um, Emmett Smith, and his name escapes me, Jim Brown, as top 5 4 running backs of all time. Um, Moving on to the last 2 we're going to talk about. The interior O line still suspect in my opinion. Yes, we talked about that earlier. The interior O line is going to need to show a lot more, especially against Green Bay, who have very good interior defense. Um, Specifically, Pat Elflein, especially. Josh Klein looked okay today. He opened up some holes. Bradbury held his own. Had some issues, but he held his own. Elflein did look like he still got pushed around quite a bit.
Yeah, and this is one instance where I personally like to look at PFF grades. I think you kind of said the same thing too, because they give you a little better idea of what a player should be doing on a given play. It's not a perfect science by any means, but I'm interested to see how the PFF grades come out. It sure felt like Bradbury had a positive game. Cousins on his only 10 throws looked like he had a decent amount of time. I know he's pressured a couple times, but man, all in all, pretty fun game to watch. I think the offensive line did a great job opening up run holes for both Cook and Madison. And Elfline will keep an eye on him. I personally don't think it's anything we need to worry too much about. Good to see Klein having a good game, as well as Brian O'Neill and Riley Reeves. So I think I'm not too concerned about the offensive line moving forward from what I saw in training camp too. Even if somebody does go out for a little while, there's plenty of depth there as well as versatility. So I'm really excited about the offensive line moving forward under Rico Dennison.
Yeah, I think they looked really solid today. Excited to see how they do going forward. The only like bad thing that Bradbury did today was the only like really potentially bad thing he did today was fumble that one snap where he went to pull away. He went to pull away too fast and he pulled the ball away from Cousins a little bit. And we were joking in the live chat that it was because he was too sweaty, because of the
No.
because of the comments Cousins made about his butt sweat.
Yeah, I must have
Um,
missed that play, but he'll have to get another towel in there, change pants at halftime.
yeah, it was fine. Cousins recovered it right away, so it's not a big deal.
Okay, good.
I'll skip this one. I was going to talk about it, but I'll skip it because I don't want to put my own opinion too much in here. All I'll say is
Oh no,
Tyreek
we got to hear it now.
Tyreek Hill was injured and is in the hospital right now with a shoulder injury. Looks like a serious thing. Um, I don't want to say good because I don't want to see a player get hurt ever. But I have feelings about Tyreek Hill as a human being, similar to how I have feelings about Adrian Peterson as a human being. Um, and I never want to see people get hurt. I don't think it's the right mode of punishment, but I'm not exactly sad about it. Um, and that's all I'll say about it because that's all we need to get into. The very last one, we relive on Periscope. Pats win the Super Bowl. Not necessarily. I think Tom Brady's aging. Yeah, Antonio Brown is a good player, but let's see how much of a locker room cancer he is. And I think they aren't up to the snuff of former Pats teams we've seen in the past. We saw that with the Super Bowl last year, where they just couldn't get anything done. I don't think their offense has changed a ton since then. And their defense is about the same, so they'll definitely still have a shot. But I don't think they're good. They're like locks for the Super Bowl for sure, especially with Kansas City in the AFC.
Is this you or is this a comment?
This is a
made?
comment. Yeah, they
Okay.
just said Pats win the Super Bowl? Question mark.
Okay. Well, the offense has changed a little bit in the last couple of days. Getting Antonio Brown. I think. I mean, how can they not be favorites to win? Especially, I mean, there's always the possibility of Gronk coming back. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but if he comes back, man, that's a scary offense already. Having Antonio Brown, Edelman, Josh Gordon, like that's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
So if there's one team I'm afraid of in the AFC, it's easily the Patriots. Kansas City, yes, but like the commenter said, their defense isn't that good. But Kansas City, he said that they were that they're just as competitive as New England. I guess I can see that, but I personally think Antonio Brown takes them to a new level that we haven't seen much at all. Having those three receivers could be just absolutely deadly.
Yeah, I think it's interesting for sure because like we don't know if Antonio Brown's going to pull another stunt in New England. I highly doubt he does, just because I don't think Belichick and the ownership there will deal with that. Like they'll be ready to either release or not use him. Like I'm sure they'll be willing to eat that amount of money just to show him a lesson and try to get him back on the field, which is what I'm surprised Oakland didn't do. But whatever. But yeah, I think that they're definitely like they're definitely the like favorite. They're the favorite in the AFC. I just don't think that they're completely unbeatable like they have been in years past.
Yeah, I guess we'll see what happens with Brown. I would love to see another Vikings Patriots matchup though. After last season, the Vikings vastly underperformed in that game.
Yeah, I think they definitely the Vikings have a chance to play up there with anybody in the league just because of their defense. But I would like to see that receiving core go up against like full strength defense. Pats or Steelers tomorrow night. Pats definitely. I don't think the Steelers are that good of that much of a threat anymore.
Gotta go Pats.
And finally, Gronk going to pull a Jason Witten after a year off. I don't think he will. I think Gronk is done. I think he'll entertain the thought for a while and maybe talk about it on social media. But hearing the comments about Josh Gordon is reinstated. Hearing the comments about him like after the Super Bowl having to have his legs drained for like weeks because they were so swollen and full of fluid. He's a smart guy. As much as people want to call him dumb for his party boy attitude, Gronk's a pretty smart guy. He, I believe, is one of the people who just lived off of his endorsements and still has not touched any of his salary money from the NFL. So I don't see him coming back at all, unless his competitive fire is really that high. But honestly, I don't think he comes back even after this season.
Yeah, we'll see. I have no clue, but I would love to see him come back and then face the Vikings in the Super Bowl. Vikings Patriots, full strength both teams. That would be a cool matchup.
That would be a cool matchup. I think the Vikings versus Patriots or the Vikings versus the Chiefs, if we can get either of those. First of all, if we get into Super Bowl, I'll lose my bullshit anyways. But
Yeah, we're
like
probably getting a little ahead of ourselves, aren't
we beat the Falcons like they were the Lions of last year. So we
Oh,
are naturally Super Bowl favorites. But that's like my last point of the day, I guess, is that we looked like we did against the Lions and the Dolphins last year, but we were playing the Falcons. So that was very encouraging.
yeah, absolutely.
Um, but yeah, that's gonna be a wrap for us. We're done talking about the NFL. We went for about an hour. We'll probably try to do that after every single game this year. We'll see. It'll depend on schedules. Both of us are fathers, and Nick Olson will probably maybe pop in for one or two games. We're hoping.
Nick's a
Maybe
father. Nick's a
Nick.
father. I'm not.
Nick. Oh, you're not a father. I got you mixed
No, no,
up.
no, no, not yet.
Not yet. You have a dog though, so it's pretty much the same thing.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Dog dad.
But thanks for checking us out, everybody who was in the chat. Thanks for talking to us. We have been About the Labor. I'm your co-host, Kirby O'Connor. This has been your other co-host, Sean Borman.
Thanks, Kirby.
You can check us out on purpleptsd.com, vikingsterritory.com, purpleterritoryradio.com. This podcast will go up in audio form on Purple Territory Radio. It'll go up on in video form on Vikings Territory's YouTube. You can follow About the Labor on Twitter, ATL Pod, I believe. It's at ATL Pod. You can follow Sean at Sean Borman NFL on Twitter. You can follow me at KJOcon14 on Twitter. You can follow, if you just search Vikings Territory or Purple PTSD, you can follow them. If you follow any number of those accounts, you will eventually see something about us. But the best way to interact with us is not only showing up to these live recordings of this show. We'll look to do more live recordings in the middle of the week. We're shooting for Wednesdays, but sometimes that doesn't happen because of certain reasons. But the best other way to contact us is on Purple PTSD's message boards. You can sign up. You can get an account. You can socialize with all your Vikings friends. You can be optimistic. You can be pessimistic, as long as you're nice about it, not throwing around insults at fellow Vikings fans. Try to build a good community there. But yeah, this has been About the Labor. I think I got everything in there. I prepared
Nicely
somewhat
done.
of an outro today.
Done.
Vikings win
really good.
against the Atlanta Falcons, 28-12. Skol!